It's HPR, All Things Considered, and I'm Dave Lawrence. Today we are welcoming blues rock legend Savoy Brown to the show, and while they don't have any area tour dates yet, they do have history here, and a new album, City Night, that just came out last month. Fronted since the mid-'60s by their founder, guitarist, and singer Kim Simmonds, he led Savoy Brown to help define British blues rock. Speaking about their new album, City Night, and their incredible history, it's guitarist and vocalist Kim Simmonds. Hey, brother, thanks for doing this.
Oh, that's very nice. Nice introduction. I appreciate that very much, and I'm glad to be on the show.
Before we get into the musical part, it's got some really cool artwork, too, and from your visual artistry these days, I'm thinking that you did it?
Yep, I paint as well, and that's a nice outlet for me.
The cover has an image of city that you painted, but describe, what is that, oil?
Yeah, it's an oil painting. I painted it with a palette knife, semi-abstract, I would call. Usually I paint guitars. On my website, I have very reasonably priced small watercolors, so I can put those kind of things into the hands of fans. At the same time, of course, it's an original piece of art.
And something else original is both your guitar playing and the sound you've got. Give us a little insight into how you've maintained your unique guitar tone over the decades.
In the past, I used the Flying V a lot. It's got the humbucking pickups, and it's a Gibson. Played that through a Marshall or bigger type of amps. Nowadays, for the studio recording of City Night, I used a Fender amp, which is a Fender DeVille, and also I used an old Marshall as well that I used back in the 60s. Played through them simultaneously. I also used a slight distortion pedal, and I got the distortion on British blues sound. So, of course, what I did originally was get that sound and help invent that sound. But now I find I have to do all sorts of things to capture that same sound. It's amazing to try to get the same sound you got years and years ago. But having said all that, you have a full-on loud sound. But then you turn the volume down. Like colors in the painting, you've got to tone them down. It's not all everything on 10. There's also a lot of finesse to it. And no matter what you've got, you have to have the touch. I've heard that guitar sound like that from day one. And it has to be in your mind, in your head, in your heart, in your soul, for it to be, convincing. You have to be you. I'm lucky with my guitar playing in that no matter what I do, I'm stuck with it. My personality comes out for good or for bad.
And again, we're having a real thrill on the show. We've got Savoy Brown's Kim Simmonds, legendary voice and guitar player of the band since the mid-'60s, City Night, their new record. You said something about you've had that vision of the sound since day one. And looking back to your history, we can give your brother Harry credit for his record collection, for looking after you guys in the early years. You also got to be the backing band for John Lee Hooker for 24 gigs in 21 days. You think about ways that sound got embedded in your mind.
That's very, very true. I was very, very lucky. I'm Welsh, but my family had moved to London. So in the early 60s was when the whole thing was going on with the Stones, the Beatles, and the whole British invasion. At the same time, I was very much into blues, having brought up through the 1950s with my brother. Also, the American artists were touring for the first time in England, Johnny Hooker, people like that. All of a sudden, there I was. I knew what it was all about. So really, within 2 years, I was professional doing it myself. My brother became an agent. He started off as a coal miner in Wales, and when we all moved to London, he was a postman. And I said to him, hey, do you want to manage me? I put the band together, He took over, and then he got a job as an agent, booking other acts, but primarily Savoy Brown. It's a lot I owe to my brother.
Did he get you that Hooker tour?
Yeah, he got us to the Hooker tour and started working me and really was on my side, of course. No matter how good you are or what drive you have to have people around you that can help you see that and get to your goals, So yes, he got the Hooker thing. But hitherto, I had opened a club in London myself, and I was playing there every Wednesday night.
Wow.
Then when Harry took over, became an agent at the London City Agency. We were part of that. And so was Champion Jack Dupree, who was a famous New Orleans blues pianist.
Right.
And he had moved to England and was on the same agency. So right from the start, I was doing shows with Champion Jack Dupree. Then we backed up John Lee Hooker, and it was just right place, right time.
Tell us a little bit more about backing him.
I know when Hooker we played together. It was 67. I think we only had one amplifier from what I remember, and he plugged into my amp. There was two inputs. So when he played, I wouldn't play.
Wow.
And when I played, he wouldn't play. So it was great. So I could hear Johnny Hooker coming out of my amp. So that was pretty, there was an education right from the start, that I learned immediately that it doesn't matter about what music you're playing, about who you are, what you are. It's a question of how can you communicate with an audience, Can you grab an audience, With John Lee Hooker, we would play all sorts of places, army bases, nightclubs, in clubs, debutante balls, then that 3 weeks of crammed in play, and we did all sorts of work.
How about some other cats that you equally look to as important?
Jimi Hendrix is a famous name, of course. I've jammed with Jimmy on stage. I've jammed with Charles Brown. I particularly like where the name Savoy Brown comes from, where it's a fictitious blues name. And there was Charles Brown, Nappy Brown, James Brown, Gatemouth Brown. There's a lot of Browns out there. So I jammed with Charles Brown. That was a thrill. But I'm still a 50s guy. I grew up with Bill Dogger Band. It was an R&B band in the 1950s. The guitar player, Billy Butler, was one of my favorite ever guitar players, who I've taken a lot from. And the one night that I jammed with Charles Brown in New York City, Charles had a residency at the time. So I went up there, and the guitar player gave me the guitar, and I jammed away, and I didn't say anything to the guitar player because he looked a little surly, so I thought, well, I better not tread there. So I put the guitar back on the stand afterwards and didn't say a thing to him. Of course, then I find out after the fact it was Billy Butler,
wow.
who was, of course, my hero from when I was 10 years old. So I missed my opportunity to say hello, even though if he told me to F off, I wouldn't have minded because I was such a fan. Yes, kick me, I don't mind. And that's another thing with lots of guitar players. They don't understand where they're getting the licks from, a lot of them. Because maybe they get them from someone like myself, who's tread them.
Well, knowing your history is something that's a great way to go out on. I have Steve, the mystery emailer. Even though Savoy Brown's not coming to town, when you talk about knowing your history, Steve has 3 dates to just show you we did our homework on you. March 5th, 1972, Savoy Brown performed at the Blaisdell Arena. On the show was Long John Baldry. Check these ticket prices out. $5, $4, and $3.
Oh, no. I remember the show very well, and that's why none of us got rich back then,
right?
Because the tickets were only $3.
Can you even stand it? And it didn't get much better in 1975. It was November 16th of that year. You play the Blaisdell Arena again. On the show was Steppenwolf, and the ticket prices $7.50, $6.50, and $5.50.
Well, we were really coining it in then.
You remember that?
I remember that show, and I did this foolish thing because I nearly missed that show because I went out in a catamaran, capsized, cut myself on the coral reef, and I thought, that's it, I'm done for. But I was young, able to recover in hours, and I did the show.
April 24th, 1976, Savoy Brown returned to Hawaii, perform again at the Blaisdell Arena. Opening act, Crack the Sky.
That was Crack the Sky, in fact. Yeah, I've got a poster from that show. I can't believe I had that poster.
Hey, I bet it's worth more than the ticket prices. They were $7.50, $6.50, $5.50.
Oh, no wonder. Oh, dear.
It's been a lot of fun today. We are so lucky to get to talk with Kim Simmonds, Savoy Brown, one of the legendary voices and guitar players who has kept the blues alive all these years. City Night, keeping it alive with a brand new record, and that's his artwork on the cover when you're taking a look at it. I really enjoyed getting to talk with you today, brother.
Well, thank you for supporting me. It means a lot to me. Keep in touch there, okay?
I will. Be safe.
Thank you.
Everybody move.